on paper, life looks beautiful. And I think a lot of our listeners probably think, well, gosh, I have a nice house. I have my kids are good, my spouse, whatever, your job, all the things. And they feel guilty about not being happy. Hello, and welcome back to the Push Pause to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Rodersheimer, and on this podcast, we explore health from the inside out, starting with foundations, connection, and the conditions that allow the body to heal. Today's guest is my new friend, Sabine Schoepke. Sabine's journey is a masterclass in breaking through to clarity, moving from being homeless in Toronto to building a multi-million-dollar empire as a serial entrepreneur. After scaling 7 startups and selling her last company, Sabine realized that high-stakes success doesn't always equal fulfillment. She hit a wall, shed every possession she owned, and spent 10 months in isolation to deconstruct the outdated survival rules that had governed her first act. She emerged with a radical realization: the world doesn't need more fluff or motivational noise. It needs a blueprint for real change. Today, Sabine is a mission-driven leader, teaching a practical, unfiltered way of living with intention. Through her Pick Joy philosophy, which I absolutely love, she helps high-achieving women move out of the exhaustion of people-pleasing and into a life of self-respect and confidence. Her work is designed for the woman who has already proven she can win, but is ready to stop operating from guilt and obligation. My dear friend Sabine, hello,
Thank you
welcome.
so much for that wonderful welcome.
Oh, you're
Thank you.
welcome. You're just like we're gonna have a great conversation,
Yes.
and I know that my listeners are gonna really resonate with a lot of the things that you and I will get to talk about today. So I'm gonna just jump right in.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, as I kind of mentioned in your bio, you've lived a lot of different lives,
Yes.
from homelessness to building multiple businesses, now to helping others reinvent themselves. Can you tell us about that moment that you realized that success alone wasn't enough?
Yeah. Um, it was after I sold my last company. I was cleaning out my office, and I found a old vision board that I had created years ago, and I pulled it from underneath the cupboard, and I looked at this and I thought, "Oh my God, you have achieved everything that's on there and then some, and you feel absolutely nothing." And
Whoa.
that hit me harder. And I felt more lost than I ever had before. Like more lost than sitting homeless on a park bench in Toronto. And I realized it was because I had lost my North Star. I had realized that, oh my God, all of the money, the achievements, the success I had achieved really meant nothing. Yes, of course, we need money to pay our bills and all of that, but there comes a really fine line when after you cross that, where you're like, and so what? It doesn't matter. So I sat there and I thought, now what? And at the same time, both of them, I have twins. They had graduated high school. They had both moved to Europe. I was in LA. And all of my identities were gone as a mother, as a business owner. And I thought, okay, so what's next? Like, I'm going to set the stakes higher and I'm going to build another business. I'm going to have more success. But it didn't feel like the way I thought it would feel when you arrive. Like there was nothing.
Wow.
And it turned
That is
into
powerful.
depression. I was really lost. And it was very surprising to me.
Yeah. That's so powerful because I do think, we assume that if you hit this certain level or have certain things that there's going to be fulfillment in that. And really, you had it all on paper.
Yes.
And yeah, wow. Well, you talk about, I love that the term you mentioned, the identities, like because a lot of our listeners are going to be in a stage similar where children are moving away, going to
Mhm.
college or starting their career, leaving the house. And now it's like, well, wait a minute. So much of me was that mom role,
Yeah.
or, like your business had closed and that role was gone. So can you talk just a little bit about identities and maybe how we should reframe that a little bit?
So identity is something that I think we take on, like we put it on. I think of it like a jacket, like we put it on and then it feels comfortable, and we're in that role. And I love being a mom and all of that. But then life evolves and we continue wearing that same jacket. And until we realize that that jacket now feels too small. We've outgrown that jacket. And if we try to keep ourselves in that jacket, it's not going to be comfortable. It's going to feel restricting, and it's going to, all the physical sensations you would have of feeling limited and restricted. And I think that's where we realize, okay, so I hit this point where it doesn't, I don't feel good anymore. My life looks really good on the outside. And people were like, oh my God, you're so lucky, which I don't agree with either because I worked really, really hard to get to where I was. But okay, you have it so good. And you're almost afraid, like ashamed to complain and say, oh my God, I feel like crap. Like this doesn't feel good. And I think that's where a lot of us then stay in that place and stay in that restricted, because we try to keep holding on to that identity, right? And it's just, we've outgrown it, we have outlived it, unless we realize, oh wow, okay, so now what? Like, I need to choose differently because this is not right anymore. It was right until now. Yes, I am so proud of my children and they're independent, they live overseas and all of that. But then comes the point where you got to sit with yourself and say, why does this feel so crappy?
Well, I think a couple things that you said that just really resonated with me. Use the word role. And I think that in some ways we are confusing our identity with our roles, which, so maybe, and the roles will shift, like that jacket you're mentioning.
Yes.
Like we don't want to keep the same jacket for our whole life. We want to, change it out and be with the style or what we're feeling good in at the time. And maybe our identity is actually more a bigger, broader idea and more tied to that North Star that you were talking about earlier. So, yeah, along those lines, I think, can you tell us one of the things that I love that you kind of have a reframe for what many would call a midlife crisis. You call a midlife awakening. Let's talk about that. Can you tell us the difference?
So midlife crisis is something, it's something negative, and it's something where I think there's shame in it, and there's feeling like I failed and there's something I didn't do right, and how come I hit like a dead end? Like that's what it feels like. Where an awakening is, oh my God, I am in this place. Actually, that's really amazing. And it was my daughter who opened up my eyes and said, Mom, actually, the world's your oyster. Like, come on, do it, get out there. And I did, but that's a whole different, like, there's a lot of insight that came from that. But there's actually, there's aliveness in awakening. There is excitement, there is adventure, there is rediscovering yourself and who you are today, which is so different than a crisis.
Right. Yes. And I, and so different than who we were when we first maybe started in some of those roles that
Yes.
we had. You've said twice now, so I want to pull this word out because it's an important one. You've mentioned shame twice. And it's a thing nobody talks about, right? And we hide from the world. And I think I love what you were saying is on paper, life looks beautiful. And I think a lot of our listeners probably think, well, gosh, I have a nice house. I have, my kids are good, my spouse, whatever, your job, all the things. And they feel guilty about
Yes.
not being happy.
Yeah.
And that's where the shame is coming from. So, yeah, I would love for you to maybe talk about um, what you did with that. And you took a pretty, I mentioned you're kind of going off into the woods. So maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit about that. And if you have any words of wisdom or thoughts around a woman who's maybe feeling shame that she doesn't feel excited for her life
Right.
anymore, even though it looks good and she's blessed in a lot of ways, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a bunch of things with that. There's shame around feeling ungrateful because, and a lot of people tell you that they're like, well, you should just be grateful, just practice gratitude. But that doesn't help in this instance. It doesn't. It just makes you feel more crappy because you're like, oh my God, I am such a brat. I am so ungrateful. Look, I have everything. Like, what else could I possibly want? Maybe there's something wrong with me feeling ungrateful. And that's where a lot of people then go into isolation and they just like, okay, I got to deal with this and try to fix themselves, through distractions. Like I went for a little while, I went really crazy working out like a maniac, or like shopping sprees, or maybe it's the wine at night. Like there's all kinds of ways we can distract ourselves, which does nothing. But then there is the other thing, which for me kind of set in, which was the panic. And I was like, oh my God, I need to burn down my entire life and just start over somewhere. Because apparently this one wasn't working. So, and people then have a tendency to burn down their lives by leaving their jobs or leaving their marriage. But these are kind of knee-jerk reactions, which, and I can say this now from experience because I did it. I got rid of everything I owned. I narrowed down my belongings to 2 suitcases. I got on a flight on New Year's Eve and I flew to Munich, and then I was like, and now what? And I rented a car and I put myself in isolation, like you said, for 10 months in the German Alps. Like no retreat, no fancy, nothing, no other
Yeah.
people, just me. And
Wow.
it was the hardest thing I have ever done. Forget having twins or building businesses, like sitting with yourself in isolation in your 50s when you have never done this before. It's painful. I cried for the first 2 months every day. And I was like, what did I do? Oh my God, I had a nice life. I had a nice home. I had friends. I had hobbies. Like, wow, what did I do? But I have no regrets that I did, because I then, after 10 months, I got off the mountain. It gave me a lot of insights. It gave me insights into what I wanted to do with this next chapter of my life. I realized that I had been really blessed and I was really grateful for how my life turned out, because it didn't have a good start. And I realized that it was time for me to give back and share some of my lived wisdom of resilience, of, you know, pivoting, of, like all the things I had experienced in my life, the good and the really horrible ones, and how it had always made me into a better version of myself. And so I came off the mountain and I said, because I'm like, this, I can't do anything with that in isolation, so I need to come off the mountains. I had no idea how I was going to do it. And I traveled for a little while. And the really interesting part of all of this is that after 2 years, I returned back to where I started from originally. I live in the same city, in the same apartment complex where I started originally. And it showed me that, wow, burning down your life is not the solution, because all the patterns you have, all the habits you have, you're taking with you. You can't outrun those. And that's when I realized, when I came back, I had the next aha moment, and I realized, oh my God, this is not about changing the outside. It's about changing on the inside and how we choose for ourselves. And it's not the big decisions that change our lives. Look, I blew it all up. I gave everything away. I lived a dramatically different life on a different continent. And yet it changed nothing. I took everything with me. But it's the tiny little choices we make every day, the micro choices, when we have an awareness for that and choose differently for us in a way that it's aligned with who we truly are today, not when we chose to get married or have children and raise those kids, that's a different person. But who we are today, when we can find that and realize that the underlying rules that we had made choices by in the previous 40, 45 years was very different. So when we actually take that jacket off and we're like, oh, wow, that's what it feels like. Okay, so now let's get rid of those rules, or let's examine them and see which ones are still working for us today. And every choice we make, like literally every choice we make every day, that's how we're going to rebuild our lives.
Wow. I I just have to say, I mean, you're so courageous, first of all. I know you're saying this wasn't necessary and maybe not the answer you were looking for, but to do what you did took a lot of courage. And I think I'm sure most of my listeners are like, well, there is no way I can do that, which is fine. It's not what
Yes.
you're recommending.
Yes.
But I do think, you said you don't have to burn down your life. That's not the solution. But I do think we have to evaluate our
Yes.
life, right? We have to actually stop long enough to just think about, how do we feel? Is this the direction we want to be going? Maybe thinking about, I love that analogy. I'll bring it up again. You mentioned the North Star, which to me is like, your soul's calling you in a direction, and are you in alignment with that?
Right.
Right. And so, I try to get women to just take a pause, even 5 minutes a day, and try to start to tune in. But anything you can do, this is a season, I would say, for evaluation,
Yes.
for awareness, and not just, it doesn't seem to work very well at this stage of life to just keep doing what we've always done, right?
Definitely.
It's a little bit like spring cleaning. At some point, we have to kind of really just like, open up the closets and the cupboards and pull all the stuff out and say, like, what do I want to keep, and should I let go, and how can I make this look different moving forward? So I love that story. I think that's so powerful.
And you know what? I have no regrets. I think I value the journey that I took because it got me to this place. I don't think I would have gotten, like, I can't imagine. I mean, they say you always end up where you're supposed to anyways, but I think, like, I really value what I experienced and the aha moment of, that's not helping me actually. Like, this has been fun, but this is not helping me. um, yeah, it's a time of re-evaluation. And and I'm not big on like telling people, oh, here's a strategy, like something else you need to follow or something else you need to adapt or have on your to-do list. That's not it. It's actually really simple. It's really listening to yourself again, observing your feelings. Like when somebody asks you to do something, you take, just like you said, you take that pause and you check in with yourself and feel like, does this feel good? Am I excited about this? Or does this feel heavy or restricting, or like, I don't really want to do this? And I think that's where a lot of women in our age bracket, where we've gotten so used to saying yes when we mean no. But if we take that really brief second to check in and say, do I really want to do this? Or am I just saying yes out of obligation? And then choose. That, that's really all it takes. But the missing part is that I think we have lost to trust ourselves and our instincts and our feelings. And we've been overriding ourselves for so long that we're an autopilot. We're just like, yes. And then it hits us and like, what did I just do? I didn't want to do this.
Yes, our need to people please,
Yes.
or be liked, or take care of literally everyone else
Yes.
on the planet before we take care of ourselves is really it's a conditioning and a patterning I think we see in most women. And somewhere around middle life, it starts to feel like the jacket's too tight,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think if you're a woman listening to this and you're feeling like, gosh, I don't know that I can keep up this people pleasing tendency, saying yes to everyone, it doesn't feel good anymore. You're not alone, and it's just a sign that it's time to change the jacket. You've outgrown it.
Yeah,
Do things
it's
a
a
different way.
signal, it's a piece of information. And also, you definitely haven't done anything wrong. It's not your fault. We're all going through this together. And now we're just talking about it more. If I think back, my mom's generation, no, God, no. There was no complaining. There was no raising or the red flag of like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. To this day, it's still taboo, but now we're talking about it. And the other thing is, biology is on your side too, because when estrogen drops, that's when we're not in this reproductive cycle anymore where we need to please people, where we need to take care of everybody else. But the drop of estrogen actually sets us free, and where we wake up and we're like, wait a second, what have I been doing? Why am I doing this? Because now you're not there to please and be accepted by people in order to reproduce. So there's a biology behind this of why we're feeling different now.
I love that. Yes, yes, and it is the impact of estrogen on our brain is in the neurochemicals that it creates. Make us want to caregive
Yes.
and keep the community and all of that. So I don't think I've heard anyone say that when estrogen starts to go down as we hit menopause, there's like a freedom, like
Yes.
you just, yeah, which is such a great reframing because honestly, I think society today is saying, oh, you're going to go through menopause. It's going to suck. You're going to hate your life. You'll never be the same again.
Right.
And while you likely may never be the same again, it might be the most beautiful
Yes.
thing coming on the other side, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I love that. And I think I love that you're helping women to feel normalized in this way because so many women would say, I don't feel like myself anymore. And who am I? And why am I maybe a little more irritable when I've been asked the 20th time that day to do something for someone, right? It
Yes.
doesn't sit well anymore. And there is actually a reason.
There's.
Yeah, and I think it's a powerful reframe. So thank you for bringing that up. If you do feel this way, you're not alone.
No.
Sabine and I promise. And
Yes.
so I would love to ask this question. In my work, I generally work with women whose bodies are starting to break down when they're out of alignment, and I know mine certainly did when my life wasn't lining up with what my body needed anymore. Have you seen that connection, like the
Oh my
physical
God, yeah.
outcomes of, could you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, so I see it with the women that I work with, and I have seen it and felt it on myself, what it felt like. And there is, oh my God, it's physical, it's emotional, it's the nervous system. Now that I am in full alignment with who I want to be, with how I want to feel about myself and my life, it shows up everywhere. It shows up in my skin. It shows up in my cortisol levels, which are way down, my nervous system that has calmed down. I sleep like a baby again. I've lost, I think to this day, like 22 pounds, which I think had a lot to do, and you're more the expert there, but with the stress I was feeling under and the cortisol that was really high and all of that. So I have not been dieting. I've been eating as much as I want. I eat really clean, but I also listen to my body, what it needs. So I'm very intuitive that way too. But no, it all changes, and your mood and your energy and people notice. Like I go somewhere and people are like, "Oh my God, you're like glowing." I'm like, yeah, I feel good.
I remember thinking that when I first met you.
Thank you.
Yeah. The thing that came to mind as you were talking about that is that you can't lie to your body, right? So you might be trying to pretend like, oh, I'm okay. Like sort of having the same realization that you had initially, Sabine, like everything looks great on paper. I don't feel good, but I can fake it. I'm gonna,
Yes,
I'll push through whatever. But your body always knows.
yes,
Like you can't lie, and it's gonna pick up on that. And that nervous system dysregulation that you mentioned, it's inflammatory. And
yes,
then now we're picking up extra weight because there's so much fluid from the inflammation and all of these things that spiral. And so I think we're turning, and again, a term that you said is I love full alignment,
hmm,
whatever that is. Everybody's going to have their own
yes,
separate story of full alignment for them. And but if we don't ever stop to think about it, we won't know what that is. So yeah, this is just such a great conversation. I really could talk to you all day about this stuff. But for someone listening who feels stuck or disconnected, do you have like a small first step or a way to kind of start to reconnect to themselves when they've not been paying attention for a long period of time?
yeah. Like I said earlier, I'm not big into like giving people big strategies that pile onto their to-do
Mm-hmm.
list. But for me, the big thing is, and I've seen for myself and for the people that I work with, uh, the pause. Like when you make a choice, whether it is what you're going to eat or when you're going to go to bed or who you surround yourself with or what you say yes to, you take a moment and pause and just feel it. How does that feel? And then you answer or then you decide. That's it. That's really all it takes. There is work that I do with women, and I used to be like a long term coach, and I realized through my own experiences, none of us need long term coaching. Like, there's just, you can have one really honest conversation about, okay, let's look at what you're struggling with, and let's look at how you make choices. And you can't really do this on your own because it's like you're in the forest and you can't even see the trees. You're in your life too much to see this on your own. But when you have that conversation with somebody who's standing outside and saying, okay, this is what I see, this is how you choose right now, these are the rules you are adhering to. And once you know, you're like, oh my God, yeah, that's what I do. That's what I thought was the right rule to live by. Once you know that, you can't unsee it. It doesn't, you can't, and it really helps you with um, your awareness, and when you make that pause, you're like, did I decide by this rule again? Oh, okay. And then, like it's like flexing a muscle. You get stronger so much faster because we make thousands of decisions all day long, right? You can't for every single one of them be like, okay, let me consciously think about this, like,
Right.
but once you know what is triggering you, like what is the underlying rule that you're applying that no longer fits, once you know that, then there's a new auto response you can create to that. And so that's something that I work with people. But if you don't do that, if you're not ready for that, to just pause and create that moment of awareness and tuning into yourself and that feeling of how does that feel, and then decide. That
I
awareness is
love that.
already a step into the right direction.
I love that. Yeah, having an outsider looking at what you're doing is so illuminating.
Yes.
And because we can't see it ourselves, we can't see what you need that outside view. So I love that. Um, One thought here, if somebody is not used to like turning inward and listening for an answer, do you have any tips, or is maybe it's a matter of just keep at it, keep trying? Like what if they don't hear what a response when they're like, how does this make me feel? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel. Like, because I'm guessing you see this as well, but I see women, and I know I was like this, where it's sort of like we walk around in our head all
Mm-hmm.
day and we're completely disconnected from our body and the signals and the clues and the intuition and the knowing. So do you have any thoughts on how does that just start to come back over time of asking the questions?
I would say if that connection isn't there, I would pay attention to the feelings you're experiencing after you made a decision. Like
Mm-hmm.
you do something and then there is maybe a feeling of resentment. Maybe you say yes to a family member to do something and then you're like, darn it, but I really wanted to take this time for myself. Or, and then there's this feeling of resentment and you're like, oh, wait a second, this is okay. This is what we're trying to avoid. So tuning into the feelings and not judging them by good or bad feelings, guilt or shame or resentment or anger or frustration, but really saying all of these feelings are signals to me. How did I choose? Oh, okay. That feeling is the result of my choice. It's my choice. It's my responsibility. So take responsibility for your feelings, and then the next time you choose, you're going to start making that connection. I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to be upset with my partner. It's not his fault. Like I've been saying yes for 35 years. How would he know?
For sure. And I
So,
think it's feedback, right?
yes.
Those feelings after you make a choice, if you realize that, oh, that maybe didn't sit right, or I'm feeling resentful, that's feedback.
Yeah.
And now we have something to help us guide that change. And I'll just take a quick side note here. Neuroplasticity is this term that I am obsessed with, and it basically means that our brains are pliable, malleable, changeable, which we never knew. I mean, this is a fairly new term in science that in the past, I think 20 years, that the brain is not a fixed entity.
Mm-hmm.
It can change, it can grow, it can be reprogrammed, and new neural pathways can be made. So that's every time, that's what you're referring to. Like the fancy science term is to say, like, that's neuroplasticity in action. You take that feedback and then you start to make a different choice. And at first, that different choice is going to be really hard,
Yes.
right? But then you make it again and you make it again, and it gets easier and easier and easier. So if these changes feel really hard at first, that's normal,
Yeah.
because you're literally reprogramming your brain, but it is doable. And there's not an age where
Yeah.
you can't change. I love it. I think
I
it's so
I
fun.
didn't know the fancy medical term, but for me, it's like it's an expandable skill. It's
Mm.
something that, okay, yeah, I can get better at that. Okay. And everybody else around you is going to feel uncomfortable too. Because if you start saying no, where you used to say yes all the time, people are like, what? What is she
Yeah.
doing? What's going on? Are you
Where's
okay?
mom? What happened to mom?
But you're not burning down bridges. You're still kind. And often you will realize that you can make compromises. Like if you had a plan that evening to maybe take a bath and take an hour to yourself, and then your kid comes up to you and it's like, hey, I want to go somewhere. Can you take me there tonight? And it's not like you're like, no, screw, screw you.
Yeah.
No, like that's not how you're going to show up, because you are a really good person. You're going to show up and say, you know what? I had other plans for tonight, and maybe we can talk. Like, who else is going? Maybe we can help each other out, and they can take you, and I'll pick you guys up. Or, like there's compromise. It's not just black and white. But when we jump to the auto knee-jerk reaction of like, yes, of course, because I'm your mother, I have to say yes, then we don't even give it the space to choose differently. And that's what we need to stop and apply new rules to this and say, okay, we're going to change this in our kind and graceful way. you
Love it.
know?
I love it. Yes. It doesn't mean you're suddenly this rude person that
Yeah.
nobody wants to be around.
No.
I like it. And that's again another place where that pause comes in to say, like, how am I going to respond to this? How can it be a win-win
Yes.
and not just let me give until I can't give anymore. So that I love that. Um, I think the other one of the other things I would say maybe is your recommendation to people in moment to moment points in time is to pick joy,
Yes.
which I think is like a very underutilized. I don't know if that's the right word. Underutilized emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't even expect joy very often. We don't even search for, like, a lot of times we're like, okay, as long as how are you doing? I'm fine.
Yes.
Right? I think you pull us to a new level to say, like, let's not just stop at fine, which is better than not fine, but
But no,
what if
but
we reached for joy, right? What
fine.
if we actually went farther? Yeah.
Yeah, fine isn't even fine. Like when people say, I'm fine, you know they're not. Like they're just saying this because they
They
don't
didn't even
really,
think about it.
yeah, and it's again, it's an auto response, right? So when people say to me, I'm fine, I'm like, no, you're not. What's going on? And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, because you said you're fine. Nobody says that like that and means it. So, yeah, the whole joy thing, when I first started with Pick Joy, people were like, well, I'm going to go to the spa or have a bottle of wine or go drinking with the girls. I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not what I'm talking about. Pick joy is not being reckless, is not, pick joy is no longer something that we defer until things calm down or until we're less busy or defer until we have earned it. No, pick joy is something that's happening now. Like when I decide I'm going to take this evening an hour to take a bath and relax and watch my favorite show in the bathtub, like that's my joy, then I don't need to earn this. I don't need to sit there and say, well, but you didn't do all that you should have done. You've earned this a long time ago. And so it's the thing that we choose, even when we make micro decisions for ourselves, whether it's in health or family or relationships, where we do this because our long-term goal is to feel like how we want to feel, to create a life that feels alive and joyful and fulfilled. That's our long-term goal. It's not to put, like, it's not a band-aid where we say, oh, let me have 2 3 glasses of wine, that's my joy, and then you're going to feel like crap, you can't sleep at night, and the next morning you feel like crap. Like, that's not joy. That's slapping a band-aid on something that is fixing nothing.
I agree so much. I love what you said about deferring. I think that so much of society is like, well, you just work really hard until you retire. Then you get to be joyful. Well, wait a minute, because some people don't make it to retirement. Like,
Yes.
let's be honest. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to just be joyful in the last however many years of my life. I want to be joyful every day.
Yes.
And there's this kind of sense of, in society, I feel like a little bit like we walk around like robots, just like going through the motions and not really seeking the joy or those special moments. It can be something as simple as a bath or noticing the birds outside or smelling the flowers, whatever it is. It doesn't have to take any money,
No.
even. But let's not put it off because that's, there's joy available every day. And I also would add that joy is anti-inflammatory.
Yes.
It's going to
Yes.
shift the chemicals in your body into in a beautiful way to help you heal and be healthier. Do you have anything you want to chime in on with what I said there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the anti-inflammatory, the nervous system, all of that. I used to have arthritis pretty bad in my hands, and all of that is gone. I was lifting weights yesterday, and my trainer was like, "Oh, you want to put on your grips?" And I'm like, "No, I have no more pain, remember?" And he's like, "God, wow, it's amazing." Like, yeah, it's a healthy kind of a joy, and it's one that's lasting, and it's one that's not put off, and that's why when I first decided to like put myself in isolation, people were like, well, you're so lucky. I wish I could do that. I can't afford that. But again, I want to tell people you don't need to do that. The kind of joy I'm talking about requires no money. It doesn't matter what income bracket you're in. It is already all available to you. It's all, your body is telling you what it needs, what you need emotionally, physically, and you just need to start tuning into that again and stop overriding yourself. Stop abandoning yourself. Start recognizing who's underneath all of these obligations and expectations and that you have for yourself and other people have for you. Recognize what that is and what that feels like. And that's all it takes.
I love that. I want to say too, I think sometimes women will feel like, well, I'm not allowed to have joy. That's, I didn't deserve it, or I haven't worked hard enough for it, but I would love to just come back to, like, I think joy, and I'm guessing you would agree with me, is our birthright.
Yes.
Because if you look at small children, they just exude joy. At some point in our lives, likely all of us were just exuding joy. We played, we didn't care. It didn't, didn't have a purpose. We weren't checking boxes on our to-do list. We were just having fun. And I think it's built into our body innately to be joyful. And so I would just, if you're feeling like, well, feel guilty if I want to be joyful, that I would say, no, that's actually your default setting. And maybe you can trying to circle back to that. It's okay. You're allowed to feel good. It's good to feel good. It doesn't make you a bad person.
No.
Yeah.
It actually makes you a better person for everybody else around you. When you are joyous and you're in alignment with your true self and your life, you're a better partner. You're a better, more relaxed mother. And you owe that not just to yourself, but to the people that you love. So, no,
It's contagious.
yes, that too.
Yeah. Yeah. If somebody's in a bad mood and then you're feeling joyful, that you might lift them up. You might, that smile that you share with a stranger at the store, maybe just shifted their whole day.
Yeah.
You just never know. I love this. I could really talk about this all day. But I know Sabine is a busy lady. So let me see. I'm looking at my couple last questions to see. Well, I think I would ask, because my podcast is called The Push Pause to Heal, and I'm on a mission to normalize rest, and we've talked about that pause a bit today. For busy women, I'd love to ask if you were able to suggest a pause to women. You've already talked about in those moment-to-moment choices. Anything else that helps maybe for you to take a minute aside, if we're not going to sell our belongings, we're not going to move to a
No.
mountain, but what other small little tips or tricks do you have on starting to kind of check back in?
So, because I've been a pretty high achiever all of my life, that's still in me. It's really
Yes.
hard to get that out of my system. And I will never fully control it, I don't think, but I've gotten much better at managing it. And so, one of the things I realized is that I'm really good at being disciplined and working really hard and doing things for other people. And I was way less disciplined in taking care of myself. Like, I put myself on the bottom of the list and I pushed hard. And so I made it a rule for myself to put myself on my calendar. So I blocked out 3 mornings a week where I go train. And those are non-negotiable. They're not moving from my calendar. That's it. So that's one thing. The other thing is, what I do every day is I take a nap. Because I love taking naps. And I can tell when my body gets tired. And this might sound really weird. I think my dog does too. Because she comes and puts her paws on my armrest. And then she taps me. And then she jumps off and she walks towards the sofa. And I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So, and then we lay down on a sofa and I set Alexa to, depending on what day it is, 20 to 30 minutes. And I lay down and she jumps on top of me. And
Wow.
depending on the day, on what's going on, if I worked out in the morning or not, like how physically tired I am, I listen to my body and it's either like a meditation that I do, like I really believe in breath work to like calm everything and relax everything, or if I need it, I just nap. Whatever comes to mind. There's no phone, there's nothing. There's not listening to a podcast, nothing at all. It's just me and the dog.
I love that. That is so powerful, and I think that probably then plugs you back in
Yes.
to the energy and the joy, and on the other side of that, you're ready to go. That's a beautiful gift you give to yourself every day. There's a lot of healing that happens when we
Yes.
actually stop and we take that pause and we allow our nervous system to calm down. All the systems in the body can kind of relax and regroup. And so what a beautiful suggestion. And I think this is my permission, and Sabine is giving permission to all the listeners that you are allowed to take a nap.
Yes.
You're not a bad person.
No.
You're not lazy. You're not worthless. You are going to serve everything else so much better on the other side.
So
So
much better.
I love that. And your dog clearly knows that
She knows.
it's time for that's
I
lovely.
think she can read
Well,
body language,
yeah. Oh yeah.
without
And she
being,
probably knows what time it is maybe too.
yeah, without being woo, but I think she knows, and it's a beautiful little habit that we have. And it really, I come back and I'm refreshed, and I can see things where before I was like, oh, of course I know how to do this. Like, so, and it's 20 minutes of your day. You have
Yeah.
20 minutes in your day. And a lot of women push back and they're like, I can't sleep during the day. And I'm like, you don't need to sleep. If you don't want to
No,
sleep,
just rest.
then you can actually listen to a meditation, a guided meditation, if you can't do your own, and find one that you really like and that just resets you. Whatever works for you, but turn yourself off. Take yourself out of this craziness, that hamster
Stop the
wheel.
hamster wheel. Yes.
That's
Yes.
right.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't cost anything. It's there.
That's a lovely reframe. I love that so much. So Sabine, I know that this conversation has likely landed with so many of my listeners. Can you tell us how they might follow you or learn more about you or maybe work with you?
So I have a website, which is my first and my last name, sabineschoepke.com.
We'll link
And
to that in the notes for everyone.
yeah, and I'm on Instagram also, like if you want to link that in the show notes.
Okay.
And then what I'm doing right now really is I have a podcast, which is the Pick Joy podcast, where I talk a lot about this, and I have wonderful guests like yourself on there. And I also, like I said, I don't believe that any one of us needs months and months of coaching for this. It really just needs one honest conversation. So, and I've been doing some great work with women like that who walk out of this and they're like, oh my God, this was so eye-opening. It really only took an hour. And now I can make my choices, my decisions from a different place. And for me, that is so powerful and makes me so happy. And so that's one thing. And I can, we can share the link for that. If somebody
Okay.
wants help with that and say, yeah, I want a reset session and I want to know how to choose differently for myself.
Perfect. Yes, we'll link to all of that. And I do think that that's those aha moments. It just takes like one aha moment to just completely shift everything you're doing. So I love that. And I will put in a little plug for your newsletter because
Oh, thank you.
that's really lovely as well. So if you want to go to her website, you can sign up for the newsletter also. So Sabine, my heart is so full.
Same here. Thank
I
you.
will just say that if today's podcast resonated with you, please help us to share the power of Sabine's mission and her message, picking joy, finding your authenticity and inner alignment, and starting with those small changes. Please share this message with someone who could benefit from listening and help us spread the healing. Thank you so much, Sabine, and I
Thank
hope we
you.
get to chat again soon.
Yes, me too. Thank you, Emily.